What's up, everybody? Zachetology, conference finals. No introductions necessary. You've been listening to me a lot over the last 2 days. Let's get into it. All right, we'll recap the East first. All right, so the Magic and the Nets played, and the Nets absolutely smoked them. If there was any question about whether Barrett Din was going to be a problem for the Nets, the injury to Barrett Din, those questions are answered. It was not. The one takeaway that I have from this game is actually not about the Nets. It's about the Magic. I don't know what it is. I've said it in the main chat, but Claudio Villanueva just doesn't seem like... I don't know. It's weird. His plus minuses were garbage in this series. Like, he's getting blocks and boards, but, like, is he helping his team win the game? I don't know. Maybe he's really a power forward and not a center or, like, something. Maybe 6'10" is too short. Again, I don't know, but I feel like I was disappointed by Claudio Villanueva because I had him as, like, he's like a underground to elite guy. So that was sad to see. Nets move on. Meanwhile, the Bucks and the Hornets... Well, I had been hyping up the Bucks this whole time, and I had kind of been shitting on the Hornets. And I was right. I mean, when you look at what happened with this series, it was less that the Hornets did anything different. It was the exact same Hornets that we saw smoke the Wiz and ran one, and just that the Bucks basically have figured out how to get this team to play well. The turnover problems aren't totally gone, but I think Noel changed around his motion, and they are a lot better. Jesus Wood was moved to the bench to dodge the pretty brutal guard defense of the Hornets. They have those tall boys for guards in Malay and Rolfus. And at the end of the day, the balanced scoring of the Bucks, I mean, Chance Roman, Francois Santoro, West Eastwood, and Angel Moore are all scoring like 59% plus in the playoffs right now, or 58% plus. You gotta, like... It's a pick your poison type of situation. Meanwhile, on the Hornets side of things, it's like Rolfus has to go ham, and that's all they have. And then they're relying on kind of craziness from other guys who can't consistently contribute. So the Bucks take the upset. I don't know if I would say in dominating fashion, but it was a pretty ho-hum 6-gamer. If I'm not mistaken, none of the games were like buzzer beater types. Noel came into Charlotte and won 2 games. Or 1 game. 2 games. Anyways, I can't count. Whatever. I'm not going to do the math right now. So now we get the Bucks versus the Nets. So this is going to be a super fun series. I think if we just look at in terms of talent, these are the 2 best teams in the East, maybe in the league, to be completely honest. I think the big question for this one, so in terms of like X factors, it's what does Idoine do with Barrett Din? So Barrett Din is out. I believe he's out for 3 days before he comes back. He's got 11 days where he's fully out. So in theory, Barrett Din is probably playing game 3. So how do you handle this if you're Idoine? I mean, with Barrett Din out, he's basically forced to play Olin Harris at power forward, Burnside at center. With Barrett Din in, I think you really want Barrett Din to be your center and have Burnside be your power forward, and then have Olin Harris be like, I mean, if you're thinking about the Bucks specifically, you kind of want to try and put Olin Harris on Francois Santoro, because he's arguably the best defensive player that you have. Although Idoine has like absolute litany of AA perimeter defenders who can guard Francois Santoro. But you really don't want Olin Harris at power forward, because even though Idoine has been playing Olin Harris at power forward, he's a certified not a good post defender. He's short for a power forward. All he has is athleticism, and his post defense is like a C. But I don't know how you translate into a game plan, into a depth chart that you put in the game to make all those lineups shift after the first 2 games. So in a weird way, you're kind of stuck playing Olin Harris at power forward. I'm not saying like you can't try and get halfway there and like make Olin Harris a power forward, small forward. But unless you want to commit to something really insane, like making Wilbert Viola your starting center, have Burnside be your starting power forward for the first 2 games, I think the lineups are going to be a bit wonky. That's going to be the big weakness Idoine has to deal with. The strength for Idoine is that the weakness of the Bucks, so the Bucks from positions 2 through 4 are elite. Against a healthy Nets team from 2 to 4, I still may favor the Bucks. That combination of Eastwood, Moore, Santoro, and Chance Roman is very, 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 very good. Everybody's an insane athlete. Everybody has solid ratings. Angel Moore, like, only has okay ratings, but still, he's an insane athlete. Problem for the Bucks is they have one position where they're bad at, and that is at point guard. Jesus Wood is a bit of a chucker, undersized, and Hernan Playa, while he's great for the team as a low usage guy, is not like a star, right? I think he's like is he an A defender? Let me look. I can bring up some stats for this. All right, so Hernan Playa on the Bucks. Yeah, he's listed as a B- perimeter defender, which is unfortunate because Idoine has very good point guards he can play. He's probably going to be playing Dimitri Smith, who's extremely good. Although he's got freaking Shane Sullivan he can throw in that position. There's one other guy. So for the Nets, it's all about abusing the point guard matchup. The Bucks could get cheeky and do you play Francois at shooting guard to try and take advantage, or do you play Francois at point guard to try and make that a mismatch? I don't think you overthink it. I think you just think about the fact that you don't have a great point guard as the limitation that you have to deal with and do the best with what you've got. Now, what's interesting is that I just mentioned how Olin Harris is going to be playing power forward. Well, Olin Harris is undersized compared to the Bucks big men, so I think where the Bucks will want to capitalize is force feed the ball inside, take advantage of Olin Harris at power forward. That will be their path to victory. This one is extremely hard to gauge because what Idoine does with the injury lineup, and I think there will be a level of randomness as to how the game plan gets translated whenever Olin Harris comes back. Idoine either has to sacrifice or has to live with some chaos in the first two games, or he has to live with some chaos in the next 4 or 3 or 2 games after Din comes back. So super hard to rate, but because it's home court and because there's a pretty clear positional deficiency on the Bucks with point guard, I'm going to give this a 7-game series to the Nets. Not the hottest take considering they came in with a plus-minus of 20, but I think with the Bucks fully firing, this is very saucy. I would not be surprised if the Bucks pull this one out, but there's a ton of leeway for Idoine in game planning, and the Nets have looked absolutely fantastic, so it'll be really cool to see. 2 fantastic teams. All right, out west, Nuggets versus Thunder. This one went basically exactly as I said. I slandered the Nuggets offense a lot. I had mentioned that one of the big things the Nuggets were going to have to make a decision on is how do you deal with Art Justice. There's kind of the offensive approach, which is you play Ricky Trapp, you let Arden score, and you hope Ricky Trapp scores. Then there was the defensive approach, which is you play Joseph Valdez at point guard, and you do a better job shutting Justice down, but you accept the fact that Joseph Valdez is going to be a bad passer, turn the ball over all the time. The Nuggets opted for the latter. They played Valdez at point guard. I think they were just going to lose either way. The Nuggets' defense is fantastic, but their offense is just pathetic. I think the most points they put up was 103 all series in a 6-game series. Not great. Meanwhile, the Thunder, they just have a very well-rounded team. They got the elite front court, and then Arden didn't totally pop like I had predicted because Evan kind of remixed his whole game plan to stop him. Not his whole game plan, but he made one big decision to try and help stop him. But Arden did enough, right? He's continuing to shoot at 58% true shooting. So the death of Arden, not quite yet. I think we'll need one more TC. Meanwhile, the Mavs versus the Clippers. This is another one that, okay, is Carmichael Brown overrated? He's not the guy. It's not even that he's not the guy. He's a tier lower than not the guy. There are freaking, he's kind of at the level of whatever we're going to call below all-star in terms of offense. How he does in terms of defense is a little unclear. Beelzebub kind of did okay, but he was at the power forward slot. Owen Lamb's not a high-usage guy. This is where we're going to find out how good Carmichael Brown is as a defender is in this coming series. There was a lot of talk about whether Ira Dean stopped Cristiano Maras. Cristiano Maras has basically only played this series because he was injured the last one. He's averaging 30 points on 60% true shooting, basically his season average. I think the thing about Ira Dean's great as a small forward. He's a stocks guy. You don't want to give stocks guys a direct matchup against some offensive whiz. Will they force a couple turnovers? Yes. But I feel like stocks players are actually better suited in a position where they don't get an active matchup and then they just kind of collect stocks for your team, which is exactly why he's a perfect fit as a small forward. So I felt, Doc overthought that one. I know he stands by it. I don't know if it was going to change the series a ton either way. Thought this was a 4-2 no matter what. It did feel spicy because Doc came out to the 2-1 lead. On the Mavs side, I just feel like Rick Bong needs to be starting over Jonathan Ratliff. You look at Rick Bong's ratings. Rick Bong is very good. Jonathan Ratliff is he's bad for your offense. I'm not saying he's not a very good defender, because he's a very good defender. Rick Bong is also a very good defender. It just feels like he should be the guy getting the starters level of minutes. We'll see if that happens in the Mavs Thunder series. Now, for the Mavs Thunder series, how do I think this is going to go down? Well, we've already seen Carmichael Brown struggle with some inferior front courts. He struggled offensively against the Grizzlies front court. He was kind of mediocre against the Clippers front court, and now he's facing probably the best front court in basketball. I just think it's going to be really hard. Scoring on Clint Cochran is basically impossible. And even though Clint Cochran is not like a god tier scorer anymore, him and Todd, like, the ball's going to be going inside a lot. Another thing that's going to suddenly become an issue that you usually wouldn't have thought about would be fouls for Carmichael Brown, with how often the Thunder go on the inside. Carmichael Brown is like, he's not like a liability, but he does foul. Like, he fouled 2.7 times in only 31 minutes, which is like, that's enough where I would not be surprised if maybe 2 games this series, if this series goes to 6 or more, end up being a Carmichael Brown foul out or highly limited minutes situation. So for the Thunder, what I would say they should do is run as fast as possible. Just rely on the fact that they probably have the inside advantage going in on Carmichael Brown. The Wilt Nichols Jr. is definitely interesting for the Mavs as a 7'4" guy who can play. He's been scoring fantastically well, albeit on only low volume in these playoffs. So he's a bit of a paint X factor. The guards for these two teams, it's kind of like I don't know what matchup you want. I think, you could play the game of like, do you want Art and Justice on Morris? Because like Art and Justice, Morris has terrible defensive ratings. Maybe Art and Justice can shoot over Morris. That could be a big factor. But then it's like, maybe you want Rick Bong on Art and Justice. Like, Rick Bong's a good defender, but he's short. So like, I don't know. It all goes back and forth. Then you can do the same thing with Coach Beard instead. Do you want Coach Beard on Morris to stop him because Coach Beard is defensive, but Coach Beard is also short? Like, I don't think you can win in either way. And I think both of these guys, I know the Thunder have swapped Justice and Coach Beard a bunch. Like, Coach Beard has been playing point guard. Coach Beard has been playing shooting guard. The Mavs have been a little more straightforward with it. Basically, Michael is always running Morris at point guard. However, you could totally switch Morris and Bong and Ratliff in whatever way you want. I just don't think it'll really change the outcome. Like, I don't think there's a money matchup that you're going for. There might be that we see. I just don't theorize that it will make a huge difference because no one is like a complete defender. Like, Rick Bong is probably the most complete guy. He's athletic, but he's 6'3", and like, I guess maybe you want to get Rick Bong on Art and Justice, but I don't know. I could waffle on this all day. At the end of the day, I like the Thunder because of the front court matchup. I'm going to be picking the Thunder 4-2. I think the Mavs have looked a little weak. Like, it's hard to say the Mavs have looked a little weak when they've won 4-1 and 4-2. But I don't love the competition the Mavs have faced so far. They didn't look the strongest ever. Meanwhile, the Thunder, like, I know they had the trip up against the Blazers, but I don't really feel like that should come across poorly, like, against the Thunder. Again, I felt like it was just RNG blip on the radar and the Thunder remaining the lead squad. The Mavericks are going to get 2, not 1. I'm feeling a pretty cruise to victory for the Thunder on this one. The Mavs just, like, are missing that sauce. It feels like every guy on the Mavericks is liable to get beat in a bad matchup, except for maybe Morris, but the problem with Morris is he's a terrible defender, so the other guy can go off on him. So I think the Mavs are just like, Carmichael Brown was supposed to be that guy, but they're looking for that all-around star. So anyways, I think we're going to get Cody versus Idoine in the finals. If that were to happen, I'm not going to make a final Zachetology. I'm predicting the Nets to win the championship, so I'm just going to make that note here as my final prediction. This should be the year that Idoine wins it all. By then, Din will be healthy. Din and Burnside are more than enough to slow down the front court of the Thunder, while all the insane guards of the Nets can kind of beat the questionable is maybe being a bit harsh on the guards of the Thunder, but they're not what they once were. Coach Beard and Art and Justice are fine in their limited roles, but like Dimitri Smith, Olin Harris, freaking Przekieva, all these dudes are just like, ridiculous, athletic, tall, two-way players. Yeah, it'll be a lot. So I'm predicting the Nets to go all the way, but maybe they just lose to the Bucks. So anyways, the final Zachetology of the year. I hope you've enjoyed this season. I have. Go Noel as the official advisor for the Bucks. Toodles.